Lesson 45, difference of two squares theorem. The difference of two squares theorem states, if P and Q are real numbers, and if P squared equals Q squared, then P equals Q, and P also equals negative Q. This is to say that whenever you have a number that is squared, there's always going to be two solutions. One is going to be positive and one is going to be negative. We need to keep this in mind during this lesson. There are going to be two solutions to each problem. Also keep in mind when you're solving for a variable in an equation that whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. Let's look at some examples. Example 1. X plus 17 to the second power equals 2. Notice that we have an x squared term, which means there's going to be two solutions, and whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other. The first thing we want to do in this equation is get rid of that square. Our goal is to isolate that variable. We want to get that x by itself. How do we get rid of a square? We take the square root. So we're going to take the square root, and what we do to one side, we have to do to the other. The square root of x plus 17 squared is x plus 17. And remember that when we're taking the square root of something, one answer is going to be positive and one answer is going to be negative. Therefore, we have plus or minus the square root of 2. We want to isolate the x. So to get the x by itself, we're going to subtract 17 from both sides. We have x equals negative 17 plus or minus the square root of 2, which is our final solution. This plus and minus allows there to be two solutions. One is negative 17 minus the square root of 2, and the other is negative 17 plus the square root of 2. We write it as plus or minus. That way you don't have to keep rewriting your answer. Let's try another example. Example 2. X plus 2/5 raised to the second power equals 3. Again, because our variable is raised to the second power, we're going to have two solutions. Because we have two solutions, one is going to be positive and the other is going to be negative. In solving for equations, we want to isolate the variable. In order to isolate the variable, we need to get it by itself, so we take the square root of both sides, because we've got to get rid of that squared term. So we take the square root of x plus 2/5, and we take the square root of 3. If we take the square root cancels out the square, we're left with x plus 2/5, and it's equal to plus or minus the square root of 3. Again, we isolate the x, so we subtract 2/5 from both sides, and our solution is x equals negative 2/5 plus or minus the square root of 3. Examples 3 and 4, you're going to do on your own, and we're going to check them when you come into class tomorrow. The first example is x plus 9 squared equals 11. And the second example is x plus 1/7 squared equals 8. Try those examples on your own, and we'll check them when you come into class.